21st. Okay. Hello. Okay, so today I will be interviewing Miss Rosa Reyes for our Trinity Oral History project. Today is Monday, April 21st, and she has signed the oral history agreement. Okay, so I will start with having you introduce yourself. So what is your name?
Yeah, my name is Rosa Reyes. I graduated from Trinity, Washington University, class of 2021, and I currently now work at Trinity as well. I've been working here at Trinity for the past year, and I currently serve as the director of the Dream Partnership. That means that everything when it comes to the Dream.us partnership that Trinity has with the scholarship, all the students that come with that scholarship, I'm the one that works with them. So I do the academic advising, the scholarship management, and programming for the students as well.
Okay, so I'll start with the first few questions, just getting a bit more into your life. So when and where were you born?
I was born and raised in Guatemala, Jutiapa, Guatemala, which is southeast of Guatemala, right next to El Salvador. I was born and raised there until age 17, and then I immigrated to the U.S. At the age of 17, and then I started high school, and then eventually after high school is when I started college at Trinity.
When you came to the U.S., did you come to D.C. or where did you?
I came to DC, so DC is definitely definitely home as well. I've been here for the past 10 years, and so I finished high school, my undergrad, my graduate program, and I've been here since. So I haven't moved since I came to DC.
What did you get your undergrad and
Yeah.
grad school in?
For my undergrad here at Trinity, I did health services and I did a minor in education. And for my master's, I did a master's in education with a concentration in counseling.
Okay. While growing up, did your parents or guardian work outside of the home?
Yes. So I lost my dad when I was 7 years old. So I grew up with my mom for the most part. My mom, yes. So where I'm from Guatemala is a rural area. So, and both of my parents didn't finish elementary school. So they were limited to the things that they could do. So what my mom ended up doing, she started her own business, selling meat. So my mom is a butcher in Guatemala. So she has a shop in which she sells both beef and pork products. And so that's what she does. Well, that's what she did for a living until she retired now. But
My parents also, they didn't go past elementary school. I'm from El Salvador, so I can relate in that aspect. My mom currently has her business. She just opened up a restaurant about 2 years ago.
Okay.
But it took her a while too because I mean she didn't even pass elementary school.
yeah.
So I do get that. What do you remember about the home that you were raised in?
That is a really good question. I remember a lot of things about the home that I was raised in. We didn't move, so the home that I was raised in is the home that my older siblings were also raised in. So once my mom got married, she moved to that particular city, that particular town. They bought a property there, and then they built the house, and that's the house where we all were raised. So I remember everything about it. I remember that my mom loved this particular a soft yellow for the walls of the house. So the house was always with that light yellow. But yeah, I remember a lot of things. I remember always taking a lot of responsibilities, even though I was the youngest. I'm the youngest in my family. Because we no longer had my dad. My mom had to be working all the time. And so that kind of made us have to be independent because she wasn't there to do certain things that perhaps other kids that had both parents could, right? So like my mom wouldn't be cooking, so I had to step up and learn how to cook so I could, feed myself and my siblings as well. So I remember a lot of that, but I'm very, very grateful for everything that has happened and all the memories that I have, because all those things now have served me very well. Because not a lot of people know how to cook, and you'll be surprised, and they're spending all this money on because they don't know how to cook, and I'm like, well, I learned how to cook, and I learned how to cook pretty well at a very young age. So, it's something that I'm definitely very grateful for. So yeah, I remember like memories as a kid with the kids in the neighborhood, and it's something that I don't see now as often, just like kids outside on the street playing.
Yeah.
I think now it's a different generation, and now a lot of it's like digital, right? Like they're making friends in Roblox and whatever other Minecraft or things like that. But when I was growing up, you just went outside the street, and then that's where you met the kids in the neighborhood, and that's where the stuff that you would be doing, playing with water balloons, stuff like that. So hide and seek. So that's definitely some of the stuff that I remember from back home.
I definitely feel like, especially like when I was growing up, I was always outside with my siblings. I have 2 younger siblings, and I took them outside every single day.
Yeah.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 4. So it's a total of 5 of us, and I'm the youngest out of all of them. Which is a very interesting experience, I will say. Because my 2 older brothers, they left by the time I was like 1 year old, probably. And because there's 5 of us, this spacing is also interesting, because the first 2, they're only like 1 year and a half apart, and then there's like 5 years in between each of the rest of us. So that means my older brother be like almost twice as my age. And so because they left, it created an interesting dynamic, in terms of the first two siblings left. They came to the U.S. So I didn't grow up with them. I basically met them the first time I came to the U.S., which 17? That actually is when I stayed, but I actually came to visit for the first time when I was like about 12.
Oh, okay.
But when I actually came to live, I was 17. So it was interesting to basically sort of meet them for the first time. Because when they left, I really don't have any memories of them. So memories of my childhood, I don't have any memories with my 2 older siblings because they weren't there. And then with my 2 other siblings, I do have memories with them, but it's only really with them too.
Did you ever like talk with them over the phone before you had met them, or was it like the first time that you had like ever talked to them was when you came?
Yeah, I think my mom would speak to them, and sort of like I would hear the conversation. She'll have it like on speaker, but I never really had like a thorough conversation with them, until like I would have little conversations here and there, but thorough conversations not until I came to the U.S. for the first time to visit them, and I was like probably about 12 then.
Are you currently like close with all of your siblings, or do you have like?
Yeah,
is there still like?
That is a very good question, because for the past 10 years, sort of my life basically flipped, right? So I grew up being closest to the 2 that I grew up with, right? So because the first 2 had already left, and so my entire upbringing was without them. So I wasn't close with them. But now my life basically switched to the opposite, in which I now live literally 5 minutes away from the 2 that I didn't grow up with. And now the 2 that I grew up with are in Guatemala, which is a whole different country, right? Like a fly away, not
Yeah.
even like a drive. And so it literally switched. It really flipped for me. And so that created an interesting dynamic because I grew up with the two in Guatemala, and I was the closest to them when I was there. And I wasn't close to the ones that were here because I pretty much didn't know them.
Mm-hmm.
And now that my life completely switched, I'm closer to the ones that live here than the ones that are left in Guatemala.
Mm.
Even though I grew up with the ones in Guatemala, but now the distance has really created like a literal distance in our relationship. So it completely flipped for me. I think the distance really did that. And now I'm closer to the ones that are here in the US. I see them often and I talk to them more often than the ones that are in Guatemala.
What was your home life when you came to the U.S.? Like, do you have any memories from that time?
A home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely have memories of home. I basically most I did, I would go to school. My mom made it a point that we needed to get past the grade that she wasn't able to. There wasn't never a pressure in terms of performance, but there was encouragement for sure. And so at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to go to school, and then I wanted to, do something different. Like I knew I didn't want to not go to school and just sort of take a job in Guatemala. And I always knew that I always had high goals and lots of ambition. And that's kind of what drove me to come to the US. Even though it wasn't planned, once I was already here visiting my brothers, is how I eventually decided to stay and go to school here. But yeah, I do have lots of memories in Guatemala. Some good ones, some not good ones as well. Because definitely losing my dad impacted me a lot. I think my brother too. Well, the entire family really, because then that kind of like shifted things, and more responsibilities were on my mom, and then we had one less person looking after us, so we had to be a lot more independent since. So definitely a mix of good memories and bad memories as well. Yeah.
Let's see. What did you want to be when you grew up as a child?
Yeah, I was very committed in becoming a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor since I was in like kindergarten or pre-K. I said that I wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted specifically, I knew the specialty that I wanted to be in, because it wasn't just a general doctor. I wanted to work with kids, so I wanted to be a pediatrician. That was like my dream job / career. Things change along the way, and I think it was more so, I said I wanted to be a doctor more so because I always had like a lot of ambition and high goals, and being a doctor seemed like one of those things that was high enough, where I could feel like I want to reach for it, because it's not something easy. Along the way, that changed eventually, as I started, thinking more once I was in high school, and then when I started college, things changed. But that's what I wanted to do when I was growing up.
Okay, next we'll move on to your time here at Trinity. So my first question is, what brought you to Trinity, and was it your first choice for college?
It was not my first choice. I think what played the most in terms of me coming to Trinity is because when I first came to the US, I came on a tourist visa, and I overstayed that visa. So that means at that point I became undocumented. So once I overstayed and became undocumented, my options became limited as well. And I didn't realize of that until I had already overstayed the visa, because you only get 6 months. And so past 6 months, you're already undocumented, and then there's no going back. Um, and so when I was applying for schools is when I became how big of a barrier that was to go to college and to be able to afford it. That's when I started to think, well, I don't have any of the support systems. I don't have any of the help that anybody else that does have documents have. So I had to find schools that were more lenient on my status. Trinity is one of those schools that is a lot more lenient on the status of a student, and also just be more willing to kind of meet you where you are. Because I came and I was 17, and so that means I have 1 year to get college ready. Typically, people have their entire, 17, 18 years of their lives to get college ready. And I had 1 year, because everything is different in Guatemala and is also a different language. So, in everything that you did over there, it doesn't really matter here. So, I had to be involved in every single extracurricular activity that I could think of before that 1 year. So, I was literally like racing against, the time. I had a clock. So I was able to do, I was able to transfer a lot of the credits that I had in Guatemala from high school and get the transcript evaluated. So that's how I was able to graduate within 1 year of high school here. But that's kind of how I came to Trinity, because I was undocumented, so I needed to find a school that I could actually afford. Trinity gave me the most money, and also the rest of the money I had to be finding little scholarships here and there to be able to afford it. And I also needed to save room and board. If I would have gone to out-of-state school, it would have been great, because I would have gotten the typical college experience, but I couldn't afford the typical college experience. And so who was going to pay all that money, right? I no longer have my dad, so it's now on my mom. And my mom lives in Guatemala, which means she makes a fraction of the salary that somebody makes in the U.S. So there was no way that I was going to be able to afford that. And so I stayed with my brother. I lived with my brother throughout high school and through my junior year in college. And so that helped me save and pay for my tuition here at Trinity. So that's how I ended up here. It was because it was the school that it was the most affordable option that I could find. And it's just, even though I didn't want to attend Trinity at that time, now that it's been years since I started at Trinity and graduated, I can now reflect back and think, though it was not my choice, it really was what I needed then. Because I was able to thrive here, because it is a very small school. And I know that if I would have gone to a bigger school, I would be a college dropout and not a college graduate.
Let's see. How much did you learn about Trinity's history while you were a student?
No one really. I didn't learn much about Trinity's history. Honestly, as a student that is a non-traditional student, because that's what we're labeled, right? We're not the regular college students that just go to class and that's all they have to worry about for the following 4 years. As a non-traditional student, I didn't really have time for nothing else outside of taking care of my business, which was making sure that I was on track to graduate and that I was staying on top of those grades, because I needed to maintain scholarships and earn other scholarships. And the other part was that I was paying for the rest. So I was working part-time and full-time jobs to pay for that money. And trust me, once you work for your money and you're investing your money, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of it, because you don't want to throw your own money away because you know how hard you're working for it. And so I didn't really learn about Trinity history. I would just come, take my classes, do what I needed to do, and kind of kept it moving.
That's exactly what I've done. I don't think I learned anything up until I started taking this course, because I did community college for my first like 2.5 years, and then I transferred here, and I've just been kind of the same, where I take my classes and I go back home or I go to work. So
Yeah.
I really relate to that. Were you the first person in your family to attend college?
Yes. Well, my sister attended, but she dropped out. So I was the first one to graduate. Yeah.
How well did your high school experience prepare you for Trinity?
It didn't. It didn't prepare me for Trinity. It didn't prepare me for my master's, and it certainly didn't prepare me for my career. But part of that is because I also had 1 year. So my experience is a very different experience. If I had been born here, then it probably will be different. Or if I had come to the US a lot younger, maybe middle school, it probably could have been different. So it really didn't prepare me. And so when I came to Trinity is when I had to like catch up, because I had already been behind, right? Like in the education in Guatemala, at the end of the day, is a developing country education. So even though you don't think about it, you're already behind years. And so when you come here, it's like you didn't know, but you're behind, and now you gotta figure it out. You either catch up or you conform to not going to school and just taking any job and just working. But I wasn't going to do that. So I had to just put the extra work to figure it out and have the perseverance to not give up.
How would you describe your experience at Trinity?
Um, could have been better. My experience could have been better, but I think you make the most of your experiences. I think the college experience is when you make it, but also your personal life and your circumstances and those circumstances of your parents also impact your college experience in a huge way. Because I say that because would I have not had to have a part-time or a full-time job, I would have had the time to actually get involved in other things. And I still got involved. I still took leadership roles and student clubs and things like that, because I also needed that, because that was going to take me to my next step, which was my master's. But it was kind of more like checking the boxes, doing what I needed to do to take me to my next step, rather than really sitting and having that experience. Like, for example, I didn't really even make friends at Trinity. Like, I have one friend from Trinity. 4 years, one friend. Why? Because I literally would come to class, would get out of class to go to work. So did I sit down to have conversations with people? No. I was in and out from one class to the other. And if I wasn't in class and if I had a good amount of time in between those, I was doing my homework. I was doing something for work, right? Because I had to be doing both. And so that impacted my experience a lot. So I know it's not necessarily just part of Trinity, but it's also part of my circumstances put me on that place.
As an advisor yourself, how would you say that your advisors helped you during your time here?
I think I liked my advisor. She was really helpful. I remember her till this day. She was helpful. I remember having a lot of friends, a lot of people in class that would complain about their advisors. I never complained about mine because I think she was good. She was responsive. She helped me when I needed it. Though nobody ever caught to the fact that I was undocumented, and I feel like somebody should have. Because Because I think there's literally flags there that tell you this person is probably undocumented. Nobody figured that out. And I also never said that to anybody. Why? Because there's a lot of things that come with being undocumented. There's shame, you're afraid, everybody tells you don't talk about it, right? Because you don't know who you can trust, so you just don't trust anybody. Or you only trust your own family and maybe a couple friends, and that's it. But you don't typically share your status with other people. So though my advisor was really helpful, I went through a lot of struggles during my undergrad experience here at Trinity that I really shouldn't have had to go through if my advisor would have known that I was undocumented. I could have had a lot more support that would have made things just a lot less heavy for me, and it would have impacted my overall experience at Trinity, and it would have made it a better experience. But nobody did caught up to the fact that I was undocumented, and I never felt empowered to say it myself, to share it with them. So my advisor was great in general, but I could have been supported more if my status would have been known.
Do you feel like you've experienced any challenges at Trinity as a woman of color?
As a woman of color, I think that question is interesting because I think that in general, as a woman of color, you experience a lot of challenges in and of itself, like just in life and not necessarily at Trinity. But I think one of the things that was helpful to me was seeing the people of color at Trinity being successful. And I think also another part of what was helpful to me was not being the only one in class that looked like me or that had a similar experience. I think there were so many girls as well that, were pretty much behind and had to figure out how to catch up, that I never felt out of place. Like, I never felt out of place at Trinity. I felt like I'm here, and I'm here just like everybody else, trying to figure this out and trying to have a college degree. So I think the barriers that I experienced and the challenges that I experienced came really mostly because of my status more than being a person of color. I think those challenges have come in different places, but not necessarily during my time at Trinity. I think my status was the biggest barrier and what presented all the challenges I had throughout my entire life.
Okay. I'll move on to the third theme. Did you have a mentor or role model while you were at Trinity?
I did. I had a mentor and role model from high school. So I had a teacher in high school. I was very interested and I was very good in JROTC. I really liked the leadership part of it, and just like having responsibilities and different tasks and different things. So I was really good at it. So I spent a lot of time in JROTC with the JROTC instructors, which are Army veterans. So one of them I really formed a really close relationship with. So with that particular teacher, I got really close. And even when I graduated from high school, we still kept in touch, and we still would talk about everything that was going on at Trinity. And really, it made a huge difference. It really did. Now that I think back, he really impacted me in a huge way because he was that person that I trusted because I already knew him from years before Trinity. So, and he also had a college degree. So he knew how to advise me when it came to me trying to figure out how to pay for it, because literally before I even came to Trinity, I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it. How me having a job as a server at that time, making what, 10, 11, $12 an hour, or whatever that money was, how was that gonna add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for a degree? And so he was the one that told me, don't, because I looked at the numbers, right? And I did the math. This is how much a semester is. This is how many semesters in a year. This is how many years I have. So this is how much money I have to have. And I told him, there's no way I can afford this, so I might as well not go to college. And he was the one that told me, you can't look at the end. You have to look at where we are right now and literally take one step at a time. And so taking that one step at a time was literal in my life. And I had to pay one semester, and then the following semester figure out how I was going to pay for that semester. And so he is the reason why I enrolled in college, and the reason why I was able to get through it, because I think not everybody is able to break down something like financial aid and in a way that an 18-year-old can understand it and digest it. Because I was looking at the close to $100,000 figure, and I was like, how the hell am I gonna get there?
Yeah.
But he was like, well, we're not looking at this big number because that's in 4 years. How are you gonna afford this $10,000 this semester? It's not $100,000, it's just $10,000. Right? And so that was a lot better, and I literally took it semester by semester. And so he was a key factor in like why I am where I am today, for sure.
Okay. Can you tell me about one or two historical moments that occurred while you were at Trinity that moved you emotionally?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Can you tell me about one or two historical moments that occurred while you were at Trinity that moved you emotionally?
Historical moments.
If it helps, one of the details that he put was to remember what you were doing, feeling, and thinking during important events during the nation's history.
I think I don't remember any particular events that happened that made history while I was at Trinity. Yeah, I don't really remember anything. Because, like, I can think of, like, when Kamala was elected vice president, it was great for women, but that was only 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, when was that election? 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, that was.
Yeah.
Because I graduated in 2021. I was trying to do the math. I was like, what? I was definitely too young when Obama got elected. I wasn't even in the U.S. I think when Vice President Kamala Harris got elected as a VP, I think that was pretty historical for women of color, and going to a women's college was a big thing, though it was overshadowed by the fact that it was COVID. And at that point, I had to finish my degree online. That the end of my junior year and my entire senior year, I never came back to Trinity. So really, I was on campus 3 years, like two and a half. Yeah, so it was definitely overshadowed by COVID, but it was a historical moment. And at that point, I do remember even crying about it, because I saw the picture on the news, and they literally had an image in which it was showing like the headshots of all the vice presidents before, and all of them were white men. And so when I saw a woman of color in between like whatever many white men, I was like, this is pretty big. It's historical. So at that moment, I think that's probably the moment that I can think of. To me, it was huge, because as a woman, we already go through we have a lot of barriers and we have a lot of things that we have to overcome, and then you add woman of color on top of it, that makes it even more of a huge thing. So the fact that she is a woman of color was pretty significant, and I was very emotional about it.
What was your experience like during your last 2 years at Trinity, your junior and your
Yeah,
senior year?
it was very interesting because for me, it actually helped me. Because I took on a full-time job when COVID hit. I literally, the week when the stay-at-home orders hit is the week I started my full-time job. And I was trying to figure out how I was gonna be able to have a full-time job with full-time classes. I knew I could make it work, but the logistics of traveling from one place to the other was what worried me. And so I was concerned about that. But the fact that COVID hit and the stay-at-home orders hit, that meant school was at my house and work was at my house. And so it came in literally pretty handy. And I know it affected a lot of people in so many negative ways. To me, it actually benefited me. And I think there's not that many people out there that would go and be like, COVID actually was helpful to me. I am one of those people. That's actually my story. COVID was helpful to me because I was able to take on the full-time job. And so that helped me because I was able to, one, move out of my brother's place and have some independence and move out on my own. But it also helped me to save money. And then that money is what helped me get through grad school. And I kept that full-time job from then all the way until my end of grad school. So I kept that job for 3 years and a half, almost 4. And it was super helpful, and it was key to my success. To me being able to graduate Trinity and being able to graduate with my master's from GW. Because the fact that I already had that job, I didn't have to learn anything new on my job. I already had mastered my job because I already had 1.5 years in it by the time I started my master's. And so I already knew how to do my job with my eyes closed. And so all I had to worry about was passing my classes and doing what I needed to do for my master's. And I already had 1.5 years of savings when it came to that full-time job. So it really is what helped me pay. Would have that not happened, I would have not had enough money to pay for my master's. And we don't know where I'll be now because I don't know if I would have gotten it done. And if I wouldn't have gotten it done, I probably wouldn't be here. So it was key for sure.
Let's see. What professional accomplishments are you most proud of?
I'm definitely pretty proud of not only having graduated with my bachelor's, but having also graduated with my master's. Because I think that, and part of that is also a lot of personal things too. I think one of those things is having broken a generational cycle because nobody in my family had been able to graduate from college. And so the fact that I did, and I only not just did with a bachelor's, then I went on to my master's, and now I know I'm not done. I'm in a point where I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna go for a doctorate. So that is one thing that I'm very, very proud of. But also just personally, the development that I got and the growth that I have had as a person, as a human being, because of these degrees is a bigger accomplishment than the degrees themselves.
What personal accomplishments are you most proud of?
The personal accomplishments is one of those that I think both my mom and my sister got married and had kids very young. And neither one of them went to college. And I think once they started their families, that also made it challenging for them to later on decide if they wanted to do it or not. And I think that one personal thing that I'm very proud of, even though to some people might be a weird thing, but to me is an accomplishment, is the fact that both my mom and my sister were mothers when they were teenagers. They were 18, 19 years old, and they were already mothers. And to me, a huge accomplishment is the fact that I broke a generational cycle of teenage motherhood. I am now 26 years old. Until this day, I'm still not a mother. And so that is something that I'm proud of. Because I think motherhood is not something that can be taken lightly. And it definitely shouldn't happen when you're a teenager. Maybe some people might disagree with me and think that they should, but I honestly don't think it should happen when you're a teenager. At that point, you're a child and you can't be taking care of another child. So that's a personal sort of like accomplishment that I take and that I'm very proud of. Yeah.
I could definitely say the same thing, especially with like the older generation. I feel like, at least my grandmother, she personally feels that because I have not gotten like pregnant or had kids, but I'm 22. I turned 23 in July. So now she's kind of like, well, when is this gonna happen? And I feel like she kind of thinks it's too late for me now.
Oh hell no.
Yeah. But like my parents have also like very like pushed that narrative that like it also should not be normalized for like teen pregnancy. And I really appreciate that because like I said, like my grandmother is very much like where the kids, and she's like, as opposed to like looking forward to me developing my education, she's at this point she's like, well, you graduated high school, like where are the kids? And I'm just like,
no for me, no. Yeah, and it's hard to like, I never experienced the pressure. I think because my mom had kids young herself, she can now look back and say like, oh, that probably wasn't the best thing. But she can say, oh, because of the low level of education that I had, I didn't even know how to even prevent a pregnancy in terms of like, after she got married, she got immediately pregnant because she wasn't on a birth control after she got married. Because she didn't know what a birth control method was. And so now she's able to look back and talk to me and be like, you know what? Like, being single is like the best stage in your life. And it's something that you won't come back to that, right? Like, once you're a mother, you're always going to be a mother. It doesn't matter if that person is now 20, 40, 50 years old. Somebody's still gonna call you mama. You're still somebody's mother. Or God forbid, like that kid even passes away, either as a kid or as an adult. You don't stop being their mother whether they're alive or not. So like, you're always, once you're a mom, you'll always be a mom. And my mom doesn't put pressure on me, which I'm very grateful. And I think nowadays we have role models, and you see people being pregnant with their first child at like 35, 39, 40, and they're having their first kid at that age. And so it shows you that it doesn't have to be when you're 18, 19, or 20, you know what I mean? Like, people are having their first babies at 42. So like, that's okay. And also, it's also okay if at one point we don't even want to have them.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that it's for everybody. And because we're able to, doesn't mean that we have to. Right? Just because we can carry one, doesn't mean that we will want to carry one.
I think that's really important for people to like grasp, because not everyone wants to have kids.
No, everybody wants to.
So,
especially in this economy.
Yeah. What kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me get my water though, because I got allergies and I'm struggling.